Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy IAS, a one-stop destination for all the English medium civil services aspirants. Welcome to another session of the Hindu News Analysis dated 3rd March 2025. And from the daily edition, I have taken totally 10 articles. In addition to these 10 articles from Hindu daily edition today, I have also taken 2 more articles from the earlier edition, one from Hindu, one from Financial Express. We will merge it to have a very comprehensive discussion so that you don't have to refer to other newspapers or other articles for your current affairs. If you like this initiative, do hit the like button. And if you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Now, before I start the discussion, 2 very important announcements. One, those who are preparing for Civil Services 26 and 27, if you want to get access to the live as well as the recorded classes of Hindi, English and bilingual medium, if you want to appear for prelims as well as a mains test series, get comprehensive notes as well as a mentor assistance, you can join our offer now. We are providing a 15 months course at a price of 22,999. Once you subscribe using the code IAS English, I repeat, using the code IAS English, you will be able to get access to all of this. Now, second very important announcement. Today, live at 7 p.m. on this very same YouTube channel, Chetan sir will be taking a live session on all the conflict zones in the news for the last 3 years. Those who are appearing for the Civil Services examination will know the importance of the mapping questions or the, let's say, the zones or the conflicts which have been happening, the kind of questions which have been asked earlier, etc. Now, for the last 3 years, whatever zones around the world are engulfed in different types of conflicts, all of these will be covered by Chetan sir today evening live at 7 p.m. And before I go forward, please make a note of this, right? Just on a lighter note, this is Chetan sir, by the way. The photo which is there in the slide is Chetan sir and I am Shyam sir. I am saying this for a simple reason. I received a mail from one of the students last week and the first line was, "Dear Chetan sir." I am not Chetan sir, I am Shyam sir. Specs for Shyam sir, no specs for Chetan sir. Okay, now third one, those who want to update the current affairs related to Indian economy. One problem that they generally face is the issue of referring to multiple newspapers. Very difficult to read multiple newspapers, but important articles do appear in different newspapers. For example, let's say in the prelims 2025 or 26, let's say hypothetically, the statement says, what is the meaning of the term tailings? What do you understand by the term tailings? A lot of you will be reminded of, let's say, a tail of a lizard, tail of a tiger, etc., etc. But I hope you understand the tailings is a different concept altogether related to critical minerals. So there was an article in Business Line regarding India having its first tailings policy. FPOs. Government is asking the Finance Commission to reduce the devolution to the states from 41% to 40%, etc. And many more articles. All these articles are relevant for the Civil Services examination. But problem is these are not mentioned in the Hindu newspaper. So what you are supposed to do now? All you need to do is join my Telegram channel. Yesterday morning, I've uploaded a link for a particular PPT. You can use the link, download the articles. This is essentially a weekly compilation of all the important Indian economy related articles which have appeared in different newspapers. Done? Now, let's get to the business now. Let's start with the first article, 3-language debate and the connection to the students. Now, don't worry. Many of you will be wondering, sir, the 3-language debate already has been discussed by Chetan sir. And some of you will be thinking, you are not Chetan sir. Have you not already discussed it? So question number 1, has it been discussed by Chetan sir earlier? Yes. I will not bore you with the same discussion again. And second, what I'm going to discuss now is a separate angle altogether, separate aspect of the debate altogether. You can use this to write a very good answer if at all a question is asked in the mains paper. Right now, whenever you talk about the 3 languages or let's say versus 2 languages, the debate is between the center and the states. It is between the center and some of the states. But what the writer here says is, in the debate between the center and states, what we are missing out is the focus on the most important stakeholder in the education policy, that is the student. That is essentially the learners. The debate is around center versus state, but we are missing out the focus on the students itself or the learners. Just like in many of your households, including my own household, when we were kids, when we were, let's say, young, a lot of time debate or discussion regarding our education was being done between our parents and others, etc., without asking us what we are supposed to do, what we want to do. Do we want to become engineer? Do I want to become an architect or let's say commerce graduate, etc.? So the focus, according to the writer, should be on learning capacity of the students, not on center versus state. Now, what is the issue all about? What is the writer talking about here? Let me explain that in detail. Although the article is one-sided, I'll be very clear here. Article is one-sided in the sense, lot of points which have been given under this is against the 3 language policy. But let me balance the discussion, give you the objectives or the importance of a 3 language policy from the context of the student, and opposition to this policy again from the context of the student only or the learner. What is the importance of the 3 language policy as proposed or let's say adopted under the National Education Policy 2020? Again, from the viewpoint of a student. Let's say I'm a student now. If I'm learning only 2 languages and if I get a job and I basically reside in another state, don't you think instead of 2 languages, if I had learned 3 languages, it will help me in easy assimilation? Is everybody able to understand? Will it not help me in easy assimilation? Assimilation in the sense, basically settling in another state where basically another language is used. If that is the language that I've learned under the 3 language policy, it will help me not only get a job. It will not only help me get a job, it will also help me in assimilation to that particular, let's say, the society in which I'm residing now. And not to forget, it will also promote the prosperity or let's say the feeling of brotherhood or unity, that is the national unity will be promoted if 3 languages are learnt by the learners or the students instead of just 2 languages. And not to forget, the 4th very important argument that has been put forward by the National Education Policy is that with more learning of, let's say, with higher learning of another language, the policy argues that the cognitive ability, the learning ability or the cognitive learning skills of the learners or the students will improve. So these are the 4 arguments which have been put forward in favor of promoting the model of 3 language policy. This is on one side. On the other side, what are the arguments against the National Education Policy promoting 3 languages? Right, we have seen what are the arguments in favor. Let me explain what are the arguments against it. First and foremost, do the learners require 3 languages? Do the students require 3 languages? Is it needed? That should be the question. Do they require 3 languages? For example, if I want to get a job, don't you think in most of India or most part of India, English is sufficient? All of you will agree with me? Please do let me know in the chat section. Participate so that I understand that you are understanding. So argument is 3 languages. Is it required? Your objective of educating is to get a good job, get good salary, settle down at a younger age because your parents will keep on taunting you. At your age, I used to earn so much, I had so much fixed deposit, etc., etc. So if your objective is to get a good job, good salary, etc., English anyways you are learning. So what is the point of adding one more language? First concern or the first opposition. Second opposition is, here is a public school and here is a private school. More than 50% of the students across India, including even Tamil Nadu, are enrolled in public schools. Are enrolled in the public schools. Now look at this, right? This point very carefully. You are competing. A student who will come out of a public school is competing with a student who will come out of a private school. What is the difference? A student who is learning in private school, generally, most of them will come from affluent household. That is a household where they have sufficient amount of salary and incomes. This student in the private school will also have additional assistance in the form of tuitions, in the form of online classes, etc., etc. Because of the financial capacity of the household from where the student is coming from. So now you are expecting this student from a public school to compete with another student from a private school, which has already more resources compared to the student from public school. Now, why do you want to burden the student? Let's say from the public school, why do you want to burden this student by essentially adding one more subject? By essentially asking this student to learn one more subject. Is it not a burden on the learners? Is it not a burden on the students as such? Of course, yes. As of now, whether you're a UPSC aspirant or even a common man, Aam Aadmi, by the way, you must have seen what is essentially the size of the bags of the students. Again, I'm not talking in the context of education policy, but generally I'm talking. If you have seen the size of the bags that the students or let's say the small children are carrying, sometimes it is worrisome because the bag will be so heavy, multiple books, etc., etc. So argument is, why do you want to increase the burden on the student? Let's not increase the burden. And as such, learning 3 languages will not increase. Understand this, learning 3 languages, according to the studies, will not increase the cognitive ability of the student. According to various studies, it has been shown that learning additional languages, it is not going to add to increased cognitive abilities. In fact, the studies have shown that when the student learns in their mother tongue, I repeat, when the student learns in their mother tongue, the cognitive abilities are much more better developed. So that is the third point. Fourth point against the 3 language policy is impact on the expenditure. Right now, the public schooling has a problem of funding. All of you will agree, whether you are from New Delhi or you are from, let's say, the Lucknow or you are from Tamil Nadu, doesn't matter. One point that we must all agree to is the fact that there is a limitation on how much money is being spent on the public schooling in India. Especially the lower levels or let's say the primary education, you need to increase the expenditure. Already the concern is the expenditure is not sufficient in India. So now imagine, in addition to 2 languages, now you will add one more language. You will bring in one more language. Means what? One more teacher has to be hired. Assuming it is only Hindi faculty or Hindi teacher, the expenditure is going to increase. With higher expenditure, don't you think again it will put a lot of pressure on the resources that are available for the school to provide the education to the students learning from there. So all of you able to understand? So I've given you 4 points in favor of promotion of 3 language policy, and I've given you 4 points against the 3 language policy. And mind you, these are not the points including the center versus state argument. These are apolitical points. Please remember this, because a lot of the discussion that has been happening surrounding the concept of a language right now is merely political. Merely political. Whether you agree to that or disagree with that doesn't matter. It is more of a political debate right now. But if UPSC will ask you a question on, let's say, the critical evaluation of the 3 language policy or this aspect of the National Education Policy 2020, please write it from the context or the purview or the viewpoint of the students as well. Include that. because the students or the learners are also the most important stakeholders in the whole education system in India. Done? Right? So these are the important points which have been mentioned here. So what is the way forward then? What is the solution? What is the way forward? Should the friction between the center and state persist to happen like this, ultimately affecting the learning abilities of the students? Because mind you, some of you might simply say, sir, how do you say the friction between the center and state will affect the learning ability of the students? I'll just give you one example. Because the state of Tamil Nadu has not accepted this implementation of a three language policy, the funding under Sarva Shikshan Abhiyan has been held up. If the government doesn't provide the funding like this, don't you think the educational outcomes of a particular state would be affected? So don't you think the learning capabilities of the students would be affected because of not having sufficient expenditure under the scheme? Of course, yes. So that is the precise reason. The question now is, what is the solution? The writer simply says a way forward. A way forward could be like this. That is, let's identify some of the schools in the states where the three language policy is supposed to be implemented. Let's identify the schools which have sufficient infrastructure, where there is sufficient demand for Hindi to be taught, etc. And let's implement in those schools only. Right? Let's implement only in those schools. And let's understand what is the impact of that. And if it is working in favor of the students, why not extend the policy to all the other schools then? So that could be the way forward as provided by the writer in this article. Okay, done. So I've given a question for you to practice for mains here. Critically examine the issue of three language policy under the National Education Policy 2020 and suggest a way forward. A 15-marker question for 250 words. You will have sufficient data, I'm pretty sure by now, to write even an essay. And I know many of the students will face the problem of writing everything in 250 words. This is exactly opposite to another problem that you face in other questions where you don't have even 25 words to write 250 words. You'll keep on repeating the same thing again and again and again just to ensure you'll have 250 words in that case. So be ready for those kind of questions as well as these kind of questions. That's a challenge for you. Okay, next article. Centering care in India's economic policy. There is an article regarding the care economic contribution, which is, let's say, applicable for GS paper 1 and GS paper 3. What are the important points? Let's go one by one. Very recently, the union budget was announced. I hope all of you know that. Please don't ask me, sir, when did they announce the union budget? Nobody informed me. Even finance minister did not inform me on the WhatsApp, etc. It was announced on the 1st of February 2025. And in the announcement of the union budget, there was a very important, let's say, expenditure that became a topic of discussion. That expenditure I'm talking about is the concept of gender budgeting. Remember this, concept of gender budgeting. Now, according to the announcements, again I'm going with the budget estimates, budget estimates. According to the budget estimates for the upcoming financial year, the government of India has allocated almost 4.5 lakh crore rupees under gender budgeting. This is important. Understand this. The government has announced 4.5 lakh crore rupees under the gender budgeting. And those who are wondering, sir, what is this gender budgeting? Essentially, it means the government will allocate the funds, utilize the funds for implementation of various schemes and evaluate the implementation. The allocation, utilization and evaluation for the schemes covering women, right? For schemes covering women empowerment, etc. That is called as gender budgeting exercise. Now, why this allocation is very important? If you compare it to earlier year, the allocation has increased by more than a third. I'll repeat the statement. Compared to earlier year, the allocation has increased by more than a third, which basically means the amount of money that has been kept by the government, allocated by the government for gender budgeting this year becomes the highest amount of allocation. And if you look at historically, gender budgeting as a concept was introduced back in the year 2005 and 2006. Historically, out of the total expenditure allocated, around 5 to 6%. Around 5 to 6%, generally this is the average wherein the gender budgeting allocation is done, which means out of 100 crore rupees, around 5 crore rupees will be allocated for gender budgeting. But this year it is important. Why? The amount of money that has been allocated under gender budgeting is 8.8% of total allocation. Please remember this, 8.8% of total allocation. From 5 to 6%, it has jumped to around 8.8%. Now some of you will start becoming very happy. Great. Government is focusing more on Nari Shakti. Government is focusing more on promotion of gender budgeting. This will help in women empowerment, gender equity, equality, etc., etc. For those, I will simply say, wait. Let me carry forward the discussion. You will understand. Now, why this particular jump has been seen? The writers simply say the major reason why this particular jump has been seen from the range of 5 to 6% is because of one initiative, that is, right, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, PMGKY. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, PMGKAY. Right, what is this PMGKAY? PMGKAY was introduced during pandemic, wherein the government used to provide 5 kgs of free food grains, and very recently this has been brought under the ambit of NFSA 2013, and 5 kgs of free food grains has been allocated. So the writers are simply saying, out of essentially 4.5 lakh crore rupees under gender budgeting, around 24%, mind you, around a fourth of this, that is 1.1, around 1.1 lakh crore rupees is essentially because of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. And some of you will basically say now, what is the problem in that? If it is more than 1 lakh crore rupees, what is the problem? Problem is, my dear, until last year, this was not considered under gender budgeting. All of you able to understand this? Until last year, this was not considered under the concept of gender budgeting. And those who are thinking, sir, what is considered, what is not considered? Under gender budgeting, there are essentially 3 types of schemes. 3 types of schemes. Part A, Part B and Part C schemes. Now, for the first time ever, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana has been brought under Part B scheme. It has been brought under Part B scheme. So, one point which is being discussed in this article is, right, more allocation on paper. Yes, it looks very high, but one of the reasons why the number looks very high is because PMGKAY has been brought under the ambit of gender budgeting system now. Okay, this is point number 1. Point number 2, they talk about care economy. They are basically talking about care economy now. What is this idea of a care economy? For example, right now you must be listening to my, let's say, lecture, or let's say the analysis, and while you're listening to it, basically you will see one thing happening. Your mother or your sister will basically bring in a cup of tea or coffee, keep it in front of you. And immediately you will simply say, only tea, where is biscuit? Where is, right, only chai, where is rusk? Give me that also. Where is breakfast, you will ask. And they'll bring and give it to you. That is essentially, my dear, a very basic idea of a care economy in India. That is essentially the idea of a care economy. That is, doing the household activities, taking care of the household activities is mainly done by women in India. And this taking care of the household activities, either of elderly parents, children, or filling the drinking water, etc., all of this is part of care economy. All of this is part of care economy. Right? So, what is the problem with care economy in India? Point number 1, lot of this activity which is conducted by women. And again, I am not saying, right, men don't do this. But look at the contribution of men under the care economy. Look at the contribution. Around 1.1% of men are involved in care economy. Around 1.1% of men are involved in care economy. What about women? 53%. 53% of Indian women are, right, basically part of the care economy, and because they are part of care economy, they are not able to participate in the main economic activities. For example, let's say children are born, children have to be sent to school, old age parents will have to be taken care of, etc., etc. Essentially, all of this will lead to what? It will lead to women opting out of the workforce, opting out of the labor force to take care of all of this. And by the way, it should not be surprising to you. You should know this by now. Whatever contribution they do in terms of, right, producing these care economic activities, they are not paid money for it. They are not paid money for it. Try to do that today. Let's say, right, imagine your father will bring a cup of coffee or tea and will keep it on the table. Try to take out your purse and try paying 20 rupees to your father. See what will happen after that. Your father will have a very long list of whatever expenditure he has incurred, right, from your birth till today. Right, so argument is simple. 53% of women in India are remaining out of the labor force precisely because of care economy. And they contribute to care economy and they are not paid any money to this. Right, that is point number one. And point number two, if you divide the globe, that is all the countries, into global north and global south, global north and global south, essentially what is the difference you will observe? The amount of work that is done by women coming from the countries in the global south, that is essentially including India, their participation in case of the care economy is much higher compared to women from the global north. That is essentially, if you imagine the globe, you will see all the developed countries as a part of global north, high income countries as a part of global north, and the low income countries as a part of global south, including India, by the way. Right, and again, when I say India is not a low income country, it is a middle income country. So argument is very simple. Argument is, globally women spend average of 17.8% of their time on unpaid care and domestic work, UCDW. But if you look at this, most of this UCDW is contributed from the women coming from the countries which are part of the global south. Point number one. Point number two, here also, within this also, we can see one more very important difference. That is, the women who are part of the global south, these households, the women will not only contribute to unpaid work within the house, they will also contribute to work outside the house, that is unpaid work. So what is this unpaid work outside the house as well? For example, working on the farms, getting water from distant pond, etc. Is it not unpaid work? Yes. Is it not outside? Yes. That is one more very important feature associated with, let's say, the women coming from the global south, especially in the context of unpaid care and domestic work. These are the important points. So now, what is the solution? What are we supposed to do to address this? Right? What is the way forward for all of this? There is a way forward which is essentially called as R framework, 3R framework or 4R framework. What are these R's? One is recognize. The economic survey says a 3R framework. 3R, not RRR. Don't say, sir, yes, RRR. I've seen that movie, sir. Yes, very nice movie, sir. Right, entry into Oscars, we have won the Oscar, etc., etc. No, I'm not talking about this RRR. I'm talking about a different RRR. That is essentially recognize, reduce, redistribute, and represent. Recognize, reduce, redistribute, and represent. Point number one, what is this recognize? What does it actually mean? Recognize simply means, first and foremost, we need to conduct surveys to find out how much is the actual unpaid care and domestic work. Is the point clear? I'll repeat this again. First and foremost, we must conduct a survey to find out how much is this unpaid care and domestic work. Because until and unless you don't know how much is this, the UCDW, how will you find out where you should provide the assistance? How will you find out what the reforms you are supposed to implement, etc. So first one, recognize. Now you will ask me, sir, how do I recognize it? Is there any way to find out, right, how much is this unpaid work? For that, there is a solution. I will bring in one more current affairs topic here. Listen to me very carefully, because most of you, I'm pretty sure you would have missed this. That is, couple of days ago, that is in the last week itself, there was one article in the Hindu newspaper as well as the Financial Express. This article spoke about a government survey. There was an article on government survey. And a lot of you would have seen this article and said, no, not relevant, not important, leave it. No, this article is very relevant. What is the importance of this article? Listen to me carefully. There is one survey which is conducted by the government, which is called as Time Use Survey, TUS. Time Use Survey, TUS. The first time use survey was conducted back in the year 2019. It was conducted back in 2019. And after that, the second time use survey was conducted in 2024. And the results of the TUS were announced very recently. All of you able to understand? The first round in 2019, second round in 2024. And the results of the 2024 survey were announced very recently, and that is what this article discusses. Now you will ask me, sir, what is the importance of this survey? The time use survey, which is conducted by NSO, National Statistical Office, which functions under MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, they will essentially find out how much of the, let's say days time, in a day, how much of the time do we spend on paid work, unpaid work, how much women are participating, how much percentage of men are participating, etc., etc. And according to this 2024 time, let's say the TUS, right, essentially it has basically shown that the number of minutes that are spent by women, right, in economic activities now has increased, and number of minutes that the woman spends on an average, in case of the unpaid household activities, it has actually come down from 315 minutes back in 2019 to 305 minutes. The unpaid, the care activities that are conducted by the woman in the household on an average, it is by this much number, it has come down. Right, so that kind of information is provided here. Please remember all of this. Remember all of this. You can use all of this in the mains examination. And even this kind of a question on time use survey can be asked in the prelims as well. Okay, so come back to the point here. First, recognize. Recognize how much of the activity is done. Please recognize that. Second one, then reduce it. How do you reduce as well as redistribute this kind of unpaid household activities? One, you can have a PPP. I'm talking about point number 3 now. That is redistribute. I'll go back to point 2. Don't worry. Right? Promote the model of, let's say, PPP. Provide certain funding for private sector organizations which will provide, let's say, part of the care economy, which will provide, let's say, some of the services such as old age homes, child care homes, etc., etc. So that is redistribute, right? Promote it through participation of the private sector. And reduce. How can we reduce this concept of unpaid care and domestic work? Let me give you one example. Just one example. All of you heard of Jal Jeevan Mission? Please do let me know in the chat section. All of you heard of Jal Jeevan Mission? Under Jal Jeevan Mission, can I simply say the tapping water facility is given to the households? A very simple question to all of you. If the tap water is supplied to household directly, don't you think the need for the woman of the household to go, let's say, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers and bring the drinking water, that need will be cut off now? That need will be reduced now? And it is in fact needed. And that's the reason under the very recently announced union budget, the funding has been continued for Jal Jeevan Mission. The extension also has been provided for the implementation of Jal Jeevan Mission. So now imagine, under the Jal Jeevan Mission, if I can provide this kind of a service to a household, don't you think the need for unpaid care and domestic work will come down on the shoulders of the woman? That is the second one. Fourth one, represent. What does this represent? Promote more and more participation of women in decision-making positions. in decision-making positions. Because I'll just borrow the statement of Justice Nagaratna. Very recently, there was a judgment issued. I'll come to that article as well, which is given in the editorial page today. Right? We need to promote more and more participation of women at decision-making positions. Decision-making positions. And I'm pretty sure all of you heard of the problem of, right, let's say proxy women or proxy women representatives in panchayats. Proxy women representatives in panchayats. That is, under panchayat system, we have a policy to promote women participation. Women to be elected in certain panchayats. But in the last 1 week, there is a discussion that instead of women, right, basically women will stand for election, but her husband, right, or let's say the eldest family household, etc., eldest the family member in the household, etc., will control all the decision making. Yesterday, there was a very nice article in Indian Express regarding this. Indian Express, there is a very nice article regarding this. You might simply frown upon what is happening. But what is the ground reality? Why does this actually happen? It happens because at multiple levels, let's say when government officials are there, they do not like taking orders from a woman sarpanch. I hope you understand this, right? The government officials, well, these are male officials. They do not like to take an order from a woman, right? Let's say sarpanch. That's the reason, even though she is elected, it is not her who is taking the decision. Somebody else will be taking decisions and controlling everything. So mindset, patriarchal mindset, right? Let's say the male chauvinism, etc. These are the primary reasons, right, why this kind of a proxy representation happens at the panchayat level. Anyways, so we need to promote representation of women. We need to promote representation of women because higher the representation, decision making, right, let's say will also be taking into consideration what are the problems faced by women. Done? Okay, so these are the articles. I've mixed multiple articles here. So be very careful. Questions can be asked in the prelims as well as mains. I've given one more question for you to practice answer writing. A more deliberate, well-funded strategy is necessary to ensure that care work is not treated as an afterthought, but as a core component of inclusive growth. A very, very nice statement, by the way. A very nice statement. This statement I've taken from the article itself, which is given in the part of conclusion. The argument of the writers is very simple here. We should promote the participation of women in the market. We should promote participation of women in the labor force. We should ensure care economy is taken care of, not as just a policy, but as a promotion of inclusive growth. Make it as a theme of inclusive growth. Okay, done. So, MCQ 71 now. Consider the following statements regarding time use survey. I've given 3 statements. Give it a shot. If you do not know the answer, wait for some time. I'll give you the answer to this particular question. Okay. Now, let me go forward. Cartoon trouble, Toon Trouble or cartoon trouble. Now, what is given in this article? Basically, the discussion is regarding freedom of expression, freedom of press versus the government sanctions. Freedom of press, right, or freedom of expression versus government sanctions. The issue is very simple here. Listen to me carefully. There is an online journal or online newspaper website called as Vaikatan, right, from Tamil Nadu. And apparently, when Mr. Modi, Prime Minister of India, visited USA and came back, they published a cartoon. In that particular cartoon, they are showing, right, the Prime Minister of India being handcuffed and is sitting in front of Mr. Donald Trump, that is the President of USA. That was basically a satire. Once this was published on February 10th in the online edition, the BJP party from Tamil Nadu raised an issue. They filed a complaint, etc., saying that it is basically defamation. And after that, the Ministry of the Electronics sent a notice to the Telecom Department, and the Telecom Department has sent a notice to all the internet service providers. As a result of this, the cartoon as well as the website has been taken down. The website has been taken down. And does the government of India have the powers to take down a website or any content which is present online? Yes, there is an act by the name of Information Technology Act of 2000. And under this, Section 69A has been used right here basically to, let's say, can be used to take down certain content from online. In case there is a threat to national security, sovereignty, public order, defamation, or incitement of violence. Under these circumstances, this section of IT Act can be used to take down the content from online or the internet. Now, what is the issue here? Issue is very simple. One, whenever such orders are issued, it is kept confidential. The orders are kept confidential, meaning on what basis the order has been issued. Is it because of a threat to national security? Is it because of threat to sovereignty? Is it because of a defamation, etc.? For what, For what is the basis of taking down this particular content? That information is present in the order, but that particular order is not revealed. It is kept confidential. This is point number one. Point number two, this online news agency or the general agency now is basically saying you are violating the freedom of expression. You are basically violating the right to publish, which is basically the freedom of press for us. How can you basically issue an order, keep it confidential? Because as of now, please understand, as of now, there is no official statement. I repeat the statement here. There is no official statement from any agency of government of India for what reason the takedown order has been issued. So question here is it against freedom of press then? Is it against freedom of expression? Don't we have the right to basically put a cartoon which is a satire? Cartoon is a satire here. It is a representation of a satire. Why are we being stuck down? Why is our freedom being stuck down? And mind you, before you jump the gun and basically come to a conclusion only the center does it, etc., etc. No. There have been instances in the past where state governments also have done this. For example, there was an instance where a professor in West Bengal was arrested because of, let's say, circulation of a cartoon depicting the chief minister of a state. There have been instances back in 2012 also where the cartoonists have been arrested. 2017, cartoonists have been arrested. So now the discussion is very simple. Is the government's power to impose such a restriction, should it be controlled or uncontrolled? Just because the government has the power to impose the restriction, takedown orders can be issued. Should there be a control on this or should it be uncontrolled? The article basically says, that the editorial basically says, the Supreme Court has to take up, not directly, but basically the article says there has to be certain control on this. And how can you bring a control on such kind of powers of the government? It has to be defined by the Supreme Court of India. Supreme Court of India has to basically say there has to be a reasonable restriction in certain cases where you're allowed to impose, where you're not allowed to impose. And if you're allowed to impose, then basically make the order public. The order which has been issued, let it be made public so that even the people whose content is being taken down are aware on what grounds the order has been issued. And is it legal or illegal? So these are certain important points which have been mentioned in this article. Okay. Next one. This is again one more editorial. Related to the order that has been issued by Supreme Court of India regarding the removal of, or the dismissal of women judges, women civil judges in Madhya Pradesh. What is the story? Listen to me carefully. Again, more related to social issues. More of it is related to social issues here. So issue is very simple. There was, let's say, the process that was conducted in Madhya Pradesh, where the Madhya Pradesh High Court evaluated the performance of judges at the civil court level. And it gave a recommendation to the, let's say, the government. The Madhya Pradesh government was given a recommendation by the High Court here, saying that there are certain judges whose performance is not up to mark, whose performance is not satisfactory, hence they should be dismissed from the service. Civil judges, Not High Court judges, civil judges. I'm talking about lower level civil judges. So following the order, or let's say recommendation given by the High Court here, the Madhya Pradesh government back in 2023 dismissed 6 civil judges, the lady judges. Now these women, right, a lot of them were reinstated. 2 of them went to Supreme Court of India. And very recently, that is in the last week, a 2-member judge panel, right? Basically, one of them was Justice B.V. Nagaratna. They have issued an order saying simply that the order of the Madhya Pradesh government to remove these particular women judges, it is arbitrary and illegal. Arbitrary and illegal. Hence, the 2 judges in this particular case, they should be reinstated within 15 days according to their earlier seniority. According to their earlier seniority, they must be reinstated. And during this particular hearing of the case, there was a very startling statement, very, right, let's say thought-provoking statement that was given by Justice B.V. Nagaratna. She said, there is no doubt gender cannot be an excuse for poor work. Gender cannot be an excuse for the poor work performance. But please understand, there is a critical consideration. What is a critical consideration? Gender must be a critical consideration. That is, when you are employing, let's say, men and a woman, a man and a woman on the same position, no doubt, if the woman doesn't perform well, gender cannot be an excuse here. But gender has to be one of the consideration. Sir, how? Why? Etc. I'll just borrow the statement given by Justice B.V. Nagaratna. She said, men do not understand the kind of psychological pressure, the kind of the physical, let's say, pressure that the woman faces. And she basically remarked that, I wish even the man had understood and, right, let's say, gone through the process of, right, let's say, going through a period. The kind of the pressure that the body of the woman faces, a man cannot understand. So that is a precise reason. Gender cannot be an excuse, but gender has to be a consideration. It has to be a critical consideration. And citing these particular issues, the position of the 2 women judges or female judges, civil court judges, was reinstated by the Supreme Court of India. But in addition to this, there was one more very important statement in the order. What was the other important statement? It is not just sufficient to become happy looking at the number of women participating in the economic activity. I'll repeat the statement here. It is not just sufficient if you look at the increasing number of women participating in the economy and become happy just because of the higher number. No, we need to ensure that the kind of work environment that is present is suitable for them. I'll repeat the statement. Just increasing number not sufficient. We need to ensure that there's a suitable environment where women can participate and also thrive. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, what do you mean by this? Let me extrapolate this particular discussion. Let me give you one example of, let's say, a study that was conducted by Nobel laureate, right? The Glaudin, Nobel laureate. What she found was, in many cases, in many workplaces, there's a kind of a glass ceiling. There's a kind of a glass ceiling for women which is not present for men. Sir, what is the meaning of glass ceiling here? Imagine there are 2 people working at the same level, a man and a woman. The man can work for extra hours. No responsibility towards the home, towards the parent, etc. because wife is there, she will take care of it. Man can stay for a longer duration, attend the calls even after 9 p.m. etc. etc. But the same kind of features or the factors are not applicable for a woman who is also working. And this will basically hinder the growth prospects that is available for both a man and a woman in a corporate, in a company. A man, because of accessibility feature, will be able to grow, right? Experience a higher growth, move to a larger position. And that is the reason. I'll add one more factor here. That is the reason many of the times you will see at the highest level in a company, you will see most of them are male. Most of them are male when you look at the board of directors, when you look at the CFOs, the CEOs, etc., etc. What is the second factor contributing to this? there is a term used, the pregnancy penalty. The pregnancy penalty. What is this pregnancy penalty? Imagine two people working, a man and a woman. Woman becomes pregnant, she has to go on leave. Right? Let's say whatever is the mandated leave, she will take a leave. Now, in the absence of a woman, the man will progress, contribute and keep on progressing. That will basically ensure that there is a fast-paced growth for men in the workplace compared to women. Right? So, essentially this will lead to a glass ceiling which is only suppressing or let's say reducing the participation of women but allowing the participation, the growth of the men to happen very fast. Done? So please remember these kind of things. This was given in a theory. Again, it's a very big theory, a very big research paper published by Claudia Goldin. Remember the name also, Claudia Goldin. Right? She is a Nobel laureate in economics, Claudia Goldin. Okay, done. So these are the things which have been mentioned here. In addition to this, the article also says there is a need to promote more and more women participation at the decision making level, which we have discussed already. Okay, so these are the things associated with the women's rights, which is a part of the Supreme Court judgment now. Next, small articles related to the prelims now. The Election Commission to remove same voter ID numbers. As it happens with most of the things in India, even this particular issue has become political now. Even this has become political, where Chief Minister of one state is alleging that Election Commission is favoring the central government, it is manipulating the electoral roll, etc., etc. Now listen to me, what is the issue here? Election Commission of India will identify the voter and issue a voter card. This is a representation of a voter card. Don't say, sir, my voter card is not like this. My picture is there, but it is white, right? Let's say the black and white. How can you represent color paper here, etc.? Don't worry. So imagine this is a voter card, right? And you will see there is a 10 number alphanumeric number here, or alphanumeric identification number. This is called as EPIC, Elector Photo Identity Card. So Election Commission of India will issue this to all the voters. Now what has happened is, in certain states, there was a decentralization exercise. What do you mean by decentralization exercise here? Rather than centralizing the whole process of identifying the voter and giving this unique ID to the voter, it was a decentralized exercise. That is, it was done regionally like this. And when you have conducted this exercise of identifying the voter and giving the unique ID to all of these voters, and there is no coordination, there is no centralization like this, you will end up having a similar IDs or the same IDs for multiple voters. That is bound to happen. That is bound to happen. For example, if I ask you to write, all of you whoever is present, if I ask you to write, let's say any number between 1 and 10, don't you think most of you would have written the same number? There will be an overlap. But what if I say there is a centralized system? You can enter your number here, you look at the other's number and now you will choose the other number. So when there is a decentralized exercise of identifying and allocating the unique number, there is some overlap, and as a result of this, the unique IDs which were supposed to be unique have not become unique. Right? Rather, in multiple instances, the same number has been allocated to different voters from different regions. So now this has been used by multiple political parties to raise it as an issue and simply say there is fake voters. I hope you understand. There is a fake voter system here, right? So a lot of these voters have been brought from other states and they have been given the same ID and they have been asked to vote in the state here. And this is going to hurt elections in 2026. This has happened earlier in other states also, etc., etc. So I hope you understand. The Election Commission of India simply says no. It is not the issue of fake voters. There is no problem of fake voters here. What has happened is we have allowed different, right, let's say officials in different regions to give the number without having any centralized system, give the number. As a result of this, essentially the numbers have become similar or same. And please remember this, the EPID will have 10 digits. The EPID will have 10 digits. This can be asked in the prelims. EPID will have 10 digits. And I know some of you will start counting A, B, C, etc. like this. Don't worry. Just look at the picture here. A to C, 3 alphabets. 1 to 7, 7 numbers. So total 10 digits. Is it okay? Right? Total 10 digits. And if you're wondering, sir, if two voters have the same voter ID, can they vote in two different places? Or can they vote in different, let's say, polling booths like this? Absolutely no. Election Commission of India simply says it is the identification number. But in addition to this, there are multiple other details as well. There are other details as well. And these details are essentially used to identify who is the voter, in which voting booth they are supposed to vote. So they will have to go to that respective voting booth and basically cast the vote. That is in the region like this. Right? They can cast the vote. Right? You cannot simply say that I have a card. Right? This is my, right? Let's say EPIC. I am from Odisha. I will vote in West Bengal. No, you have been registered as a voter in Odisha. Go and vote in that particular constituency itself. Done? So essentially, the Election Commission of India says, no, there is no fake voters here. There is a, right, there is a problem. We will address, we will remove all of these particular same ID numbers. Okay, done. So let me go forward now. One more article in the continuing saga of the issue between Ukraine as well as Russia and USA. Now there is one more development. One more development. What is one more development? The president of Ukraine has gone to UK, was welcomed with a warm hug, and now there is a discussion. There is a discussion where basically they are saying we will have a policy, we will bring out with, right, a plan, we'll come out with a plan, submit it to Mr. Donald Trump, and we will go forward. We will try to bring in peace in this particular region. There is a 4-point plan that has been proposed by UK and other countries. There's a 4-point plan. What is the 4-point plan here? 1, they will continue to impose a pressure on Russia. They will continue to impose economic pressure on Russia. Second, they will continue to provide assistance to Ukraine. This is the second point. Continue to provide assistance to Ukraine. And third point, they will ensure that Ukraine will be part of the negotiations. Ukraine will be part of the negotiations, because please understand, until now there was a concern amongst these particular people from Ukraine and leaders of Ukraine that Mr. Donald Trump might negotiate with Russia, leaving out Ukraine, which is part of the, let's say, the part of the war here. They will leave out Ukraine and basically negotiate a peace deal. Now, according to the 4-point plan of this particular summit, Ukraine will be given a position on the negotiation table. And the 4th point, important for your prelims, there will be a coalition of willing. There will be a coalition of willing. Now, there's a particular reason why this term has been used. Coalition of willing. What is this particular right term, coalition of willing? If you remember, decades ago, many decades ago, USA had an attack on Iraq. Basically, they said there are nuclear weapons. When Mr. Bush was the president of USA, they attacked Iraq, saying that there are nuclear arsenals in, right, let's say, Iraq. Although later it was found out that there were no nuclear weapons, but attack was done. And the whole, right, let's say, the system of governance in, right, let's say, Iraq was dismantled. And when this particular attack was conducted, there are multiple countries who supported USA. There are multiple countries who gave support to USA. For example, one of them was UK. Right? Multiple countries who supported USA, one of them was UK. In what way? UK provided more than 40,000 soldiers to fight along with the soldiers of USA in this war in Iraq. And that essentially the coalition of around 30 countries which supported the attack of USA on Iraq was referred to as coalition of willing. That was essentially referred to as coalition of willing. And that is what has been mentioned by the Prime Minister of UK now in an interview. What is the importance of this mention? Many experts argue that this has been mentioned to basically tell Mr. Donald Trump that we have supported you earlier. Now you will have to support us during this particular peace plan. Done? Okay. Right. So this is essentially the update of ongoing saga between Russia and Ukraine. Next one. Private USA spacecraft lands upright on the moon. This is important for prelims. Upright on the moon. This is the first time ever. I repeat, this is the first time ever where a private sector company has landed, right, a spacecraft on the moon upright. All of you, I hope you understand upright. What does it mean? Because in many of the articles that you read later or many of the magazines that you might refer, they will say this is the second private sector company to land on the moon. Right? They have landed on the moon. Spacecraft has been landed on the moon. They will say this is a second company. But I am saying this is the first company to land upright on the moon. What is the difference here? Please understand. Earlier there was one more company, private sector company, Intuitive Machines, which landed on the moon. This is again private sector company. The first one and the second one is a Firefly Aerospace. But when they landed on the moon, the machine, or let's say the spacecraft, did not land right upright like this. Because of the pace at which it descended, it basically landed on the sideways. It landed sideways, but for the first time, the Firefly Aerospace has landed upward like this. So, private sector company, second to land on the moon, but first one to land upright on the moon. Okay. Now, I have a very interesting question for all of you. Along with the private sector companies, there are also government agencies which have landed on the moon. How many such countries have landed on the moon? Please do let me know in the chat section now or later in the comment section. Okay. Now, the name of the company is Firefly Aerospace. The mission has been named as Blue Ghost. Right, this will be conducting studies on the moon, right, for around 14 Earth days, or it has been designed to basically operate for full lunar day. Full lunar day essentially comes at around 29 to 30 days. Done? Okay, so these are certain important points associated with this, right, let's say S&T article. Next one more article, court orders FIR against ex-SEBI chief. Very interesting article, by the way. Very interesting because please understand, lot of you will read this article and come to a conclusion, no connection to UPSC whatsoever. You will jump to conclusion, absolutely no connection to UPSC. But there is a connection to UPSC. What is the connection? Decades ago, there was a company which was listed in the stock market. The name of the company is Cal's Refinery. Cal's Refinery. And this was listed in the stock market back in the year 1994, BSE by the way, Bombay Stock Exchange. But in 2017, Bombay Stock Exchange imposed a ban, SEBI also imposed a ban on this particular company, Cal's Refinery. And the case which has been registered, FIR which has been registered against many of the officials of SEBI as well as the ex-chief of SEBI basically is associated with the trading of the stocks of this Cal's Refinery itself. Now, many of you will basically say, sir, what is the connection to UPSC? UPSC is not going to ask you question on FIR. But what is the connection? The connection essentially is the Cal's Refinery was not allowed to trade in the stock market, was not allowed to access the capital market because of their policies or manipulations associated with GDR. Remember this, GDR, not GDP. Don't simply say, sir, you have made a mistake, it's GDP. No, GDR. There is a concept called as Global Depository Receipts, wherein, let's say, an Indian company, instead of listing in the stock market, instead of listing their shares in the stock market, is allowed to list certain instruments which represent shares of the company. That is called as the GDR, Global Depository Receipt. There were multiple allegations against the management of the Cal's Refinery. Essentially, one of the most important allegations was they have manipulated this particular system of GDR to raise funds and show wrong data to SEBI. Right, so that is the importance of this particular article. Do not memorize the FIR. Do not basically go through, right, how many people have been alleged to be involved in corruption system here, etc. None of that is important. The only important point, which has not been mentioned in the article but important for civil services, is the concept of a global depository receipt. Okay, so associated with GDR, I've given a statement here, a question, three statement question here, MCQ 72. Consider the following statements regarding GDRs. Indian companies are allowed to issue ADR but not GDR. No company in India has so far issued ADR or GDR. The amount of money collected by Indian companies under ADR, GDR is recorded under the capital account of balance of payments. How many of these statements are true? Do let me know. I'll give you the key answer in a couple of minutes. Don't worry. Okay, two more articles. After that, I'll be done. Israel cuts Gaza aid to basically Israel is cutting the aid access to Gaza. Now, what is the importance of this article? 6 weeks ago, or more than just, right, let's say 2 or 3 days, above 6 weeks ago, there was a peace plan that was implemented, a ceasefire plan which was implemented. It was essentially was to be implemented in 3 phases, and if it was implemented across all the 3 phases, a long-lasting ceasefire would be implemented between Gaza and Israel. The first phase of this has been implemented from 19th January. It was implemented from 19th January for a period of, right, 6 weeks. For a period of 6 weeks, which ended on Saturday. Which has ended on Saturday. Now, the second phase was supposed to be implemented. In the second phase, there was supposed to be talks held between both of the parties. There was supposed to be a larger exchange of prisoners who have been, right, let's say, kept by both of these particular countries, etc. There was supposed to be an implementation of second phase. Negotiations were happening. Both of the parties, that is essentially Gaza on one side, right, and Israel on the other side, both of the parties have accused each other for violating the, let's say, the phase 1 of ceasefire plan. It is said that both of the parties wanted different things now. Israel wanted an extension in the phase 1, right, a couple of more weeks of extension. As a result of this, the phase 2 has not been implemented, which was supposed to be implemented now. It has not been implemented. Saturday was the last day of the phase 1 ceasefire plan between Israel and Gaza. And because the second phase was not implemented or the extension was not given, Israel has cut off the aid that was flowing to Gaza. Now, many of the experts have criticized Israel for this, but Israel is saying, under the ceasefire plan, if the parties do not come to an agreement, if there is any violation to this particular ceasefire plan, it is said that I have every right to resume the attacks. So, because there is no second phase now, I've started, right, basically holding the aid access to Gaza. Done? So, this is one more update. Now, one more small article regarding S&T Planetary Parades. Planetary Parades, GS Paper 3 article. On the 20th February, 28th February, there was a very interesting observation in the sky. That is a planetary parade. Please understand, what do you mean by planetary parade? Whenever multiple planets come in the same alignment, because I'm pretty sure all of you know this by now, the planets basically circle around the sun, right? Go around the sun in the same ecliptic axis. But at one point of time, multiple planets will come in the same axis or in the same line. And you can see these particular planets along one line, and that is called as a planetary parade. And this parade that happened last day of February, it is important one, or it doesn't happen very often because 7 planets were in the same line. 7 planets. What were the 7 planets? Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn, Venus, Neptune and Mercury. These 7 planets were in the same line, and that is essentially the importance of this article, planetary parade. And the next time when such planetary parade will happen where 7 planets are In the same line will happen only in the 2040. 2040. You are in 2025, 15 years later. Done? Right. So this is essentially, right, one more small article regarding Planetary Parade can be asked in the preliminary examination. Please make a note of this. Okay, so that is essentially end of all the 10 topics that I have taken up, plus a couple of more articles from earlier edition of Hindu as well as Financial Express. Now, there were 2 questions in the earlier video that I have discussed of Hindu News Analysis. Only 2 questions were there. I have taken up those questions. Sir, in the dollar-rupee swap deal, do we return the exact money in the same currency or there is some rate of interest? This question is associated with dollar-rupee buy swap deal or dollar-rupee buy sell swap deal or dollar-rupee sell buy swap deal. Essentially, whenever such swaps are conducted between RBI and, right, let's say any other bank in India, there is a concept of a premium. I repeat, there is a concept of premium, right? Certain premium is paid and that premium is included in, let's say, the far off leg. Far off leg means essentially the second part of the transaction at which prices it will be exchanged, that is included in the second leg or the far off leg. Okay. Second question, multiple questions were raised regarding the question number 69 that I have discussed. Which of the following is or are, right, not likely to reduce the current account deficit? The confusion has arisen because I have made 2 and 3 as green and I have basically made the option 2 or let's say option B as green. My dear, I'll repeat this again. Please understand. In case of the question says, right, let's say not likely to reduce. This was the term. I've mentioned that, but anyways, the confusion because I have coded them wrongly. If the question says not likely to reduce the CAD, then it has to be only option A. That is statement 1. If the question doesn't have the term not, if the question does not have the term not, or else I'll borrow the symbol from a Squid Game. If the question doesn't have this particular not, then in such cases, the option will be 2 and 3. If the not is there, then import quotas will reduce the CAD, right? And promotion of healthcare tourism will reduce the CAD. Done? Everybody is okay? So these were the 2 questions. Now the 2 MCQs. MCQ 71, consider the following statements regarding time use survey. The time use survey is conducted by the Labour Bureau under the Ministry of Labour? No. It is conducted by NSO. NSO under MOSPI. The first TUS was conducted in 2019. Yes. It measures paid and unpaid activities done by the population. Population here means men and women. Yes. Right. 2 and 3 statements are correct. Right option will be option B. Only 2 are correct. Next, MCQ 72. Consider the following statements regarding GDR. Indian companies are allowed to issue ADR but not GDR. Incorrect. They are allowed to issue both ADR and GDR. No company in India has so far issued ADR and GDR. This is also incorrect. Multiple companies, Wipro, Infosys, ICICI, etc. They have used the tools of ADR as well as GDR. Okay. Third, the amount of money collected by Indian companies under ADR or GDR is recorded under the capital account of balance of payments. Yes, it is recorded under the balance of payments. Okay, it is recorded under the capital account, specifically capital account of balance of payments. Done? Right. So MCQ number 72, option A is the right one. So again, just reiterating the point here. If you want this PPT as well as let's say the weekly current affairs update for GS paper 3 Indian economy part, you can join my Telegram channel. This is a QR code. You need to simply scan and join the Telegram channel. So that's it from my side in today's session. If you like this initiative, do not forget to hit the like button. And if you yet to join our YouTube channel, kindly do it right now. Thank you. Have a great day.